Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're a new or, a developing ice hockey referee, you have just taken the single most important step in supporting the game we all love.
You've decided to put on the
You
stripes.
put on the strike, so congratulations. And you've probably already started looking at the rule book, maybe flipping through just hundreds of pages of penalties and definitions.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. But today, we're going to give you the ultimate shortcut. We're going to deep dive not into some obscure minor penalty, but into the DNA of the rule book itself.
That's exactly right. And for a new official, the sheer volume of information can be so overwhelming.
For sure.
So this deep dive it's foundational. Our mission today is to clarify the architecture of authority within USA Hockey's rule structure.
The architecture of authority, I like that.
Because before you can apply Rule 621 on slashing or Rule 603 on boarding, you need to understand which document holds the absolute power and which documents are there to guide you.
To help you get it right.
Exactly. Knowing this hierarchy is the bedrock of confidence when you step on the ice.
Yeah, that idea of understanding the architecture. It just takes the subjective pressure off you as the official, right? You're not relying on some vague memory. You're enforcing a defined standard.
A national standard.
But that standard, as I understand it, it's governed by a very specific timeline.
It is. USA Hockey doesn't just rewrite the cool rules every single season, which is a great comfort for officials. They operate on a defined, predictable 4-year rules cycle.
Okay, let's unpack this. What is the current cycle? The one we need to have pinned to our mental bulletin board.
So the current rule set gives us stability from 2025 straight through the end of the 2029 season.
25-29. Got it.
And knowing that date range is so important because it means the core philosophy, the definitions of penalties, all the corresponding assessments are locked in for a good long time.
So you can really build consistency.
Right. You can build that consistency in your officiating without, worrying about major rule language shifting year to year.
And within that stable 4-year cycle, we have one document that is, it's the law of the land, the ultimate source of power.
Precisely. We're talking about the playing rules document. This is the single ultimate governing authority for every single game played under USA Hockey jurisdiction.
Every single game.
Every one. If a game is sanctioned by USA Hockey, whether it's an 8 and under cross-ice game or, a late-night adult league, the playing rules are the binding statute.
Now, this sounds like a simple point, but I think for a new official, this is actually the first big hurdle. You're saying these rules are the law, but hockey has so much local tradition.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when a coach or, a veteran player challenges a call by saying, hey, that's the way we've always done it at this rink?
That is the most important confrontation a new official will face, I promise you. And it's why internalizing this hierarchy is so critical.
So let me do.
You have to remember, these rules are mandatory. They are non-negotiable. They apply no matter what the local preference is, the regional tradition.
Even if the coaches agreed on something before the game.
Even then. The only exceptions are when the playing rules themselves explicitly allow for a variation, like for certain youth age groups. But otherwise, they're the required code. Period.
So when I stand up for a call, I'm not defending my own choice. I'm defending the national legal standard for the sport.
Yes. And that's what gives you authority and, frankly, protection.
It's not personal.
It removes the subjectivity of what feels right and replaces it with the objective power of what is written. Your job is to enforce the written word. That's it.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the job requires more than just knowing that one rule book. We have this crucial partner document, the official Rules Casebook.
Right.
And to someone new, these two books can look like they have the same information, but their functions are totally different.
They are. It's the difference between, say, the statutory law and the case precedent that interprets that law.
Okay, break that down for me.
The playing rules contain the clean, enforceable rule language. They define the violation. They list the penalty options. For example, Rule 611, boarding, says something like, a minor or major penalty shall be assessed to any player who checks or drives an opponent violently into the boards.
Okay, that's the rule.
That is the rule.
But the ice is messy. Violently is subjective.
Yeah.
What does it mean to check or drive someone violently? That could mean a lot of different things depending on the situation.
And that is where the official Rules Casebook shines. It provides the approved interpretations of the playing rules by showing you how that language applies in specific real-world on-ice scenarios.
It gives you examples.
Dozens of them. The casebook might break down that boarding rule into, 10, 15 situations. What if a player initiates contact 5 feet from the boards? What if the player who gets hit turns at the last second.
Right. What if he kind of slides in instead of being driven?
Exactly. The casebook answers those what-if questions. It operationalizes the abstract language.
So lets you be consistent, game to game, ref to ref.
Absolutely. It helps bridge that gap between what it says and what it means when you're dealing with, human dynamics on the ice. But, and this is a huge but,
Okay.
we have to stress the hierarchy here. This is where an experienced official really separates themselves from a novice. If you ever perceive a conflict between the two.
If the casebook says one thing, but the playing rules say another.
Yes. If a scenario in the casebook seems to contradict the fundamental language in the playing rules control.
Right.
Always.
The law always supersedes the commentary.
The casebook is a support document. It explains, it interprets, it gives context, but it cannot fundamentally override the binding statute. Knowing that gives you so much certainty in every decision you make.
So once we've mastered the rules in the casebook, where does an official go for, daily operational support? The game has so many other moving parts: equipment, reporting.
Right, and that's where the ancillary documents come in, the ones designed to promote uniformity and safety, starting with what often seems most daunting for a new official discipline.
Yeah, when a serious infraction happens, a match penalty, a major that results in a game misconduct, everyone starts talking about suspensions. USA Hockey have a standardized discipline document. What's our role in that? And what are we not responsible for?
It's so important to know your role is contained, and that should be a huge relief. Your responsibility ends at the ice surface.
That's it.
You are tasked with two things. First, enforce the penalty on the ice immediately, as the rule dictates. 5 in the game, for example. Second, you have to submit the required reports detailing the incident exactly as you saw it.
And that's it. We don't assign suspensions.
You do not. Officials do not assign suspensions or determine disciplinary outcomes.
Right.
That is the job of administrative committees.
So we are the fact finders. We document the incident with precision, but we're not the judge and jury.
Correct. And that precision is everything. Your report has to accurately quote the rule that was violated, describe the sequence of events without emotion. You have to use that objective language from the rulebook.
A bad report could mess up the whole process.
It absolutely can. So knowing those source documents is essential for your duty as a fact finder.
That makes sense. Okay, shifting gears a bit, we also hear about standard operating procedures, or SOPs. Why do we need those if the playing rules already tell us what to do?
SOPs are all about guaranteeing national consistency. Some rules, especially around pre-game stuff or equipment, are complex and they need a uniform approach everywhere.
So the SOP is the how-to guide.
Exactly. The SOP provides consistent enforcement guidance. It details the process of enforcement. And crucially, SOPs do not replace rules.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. Player safety is a huge focus. Let's say there's a rule that all players in a certain age group must wear neck laceration protection. The playing rule just says the neck guard shall be worn.
Yeah, okay, pretty simple.
But the SOP would then detail the step-by-step process. When does the official check this? How do you document a failed check? What specific words do you use when you tell a coach about non-compliance? The SOP makes sure an official in Minnesota does that check exactly like an official in Florida.
Uniformity again. It's the key to fair play. And then we have points of emphasis, or POEs. These seem to be the most talked about things in preseason seminars. What's their power and what's their limitation?
POEs are critical communication tools. They just highlight areas USA Hockey wants enforced with particular focus, usually driven by safety trends or, things they've seen slipping and officiating consistency.
Like late hits or hits to the head.
Exactly. A few years ago, there was a major POE on that because those incidents were trending up. The POE is just a reminder to every official: enforce the existing rules strictly.
So the POE on head contact didn't invent a new penalty for hitting a head.
Not at all.
It just strongly mandated that we call the existing penalties, like charging or checking from behind when they involve the head.
Precisely. The crucial limitation is that POEs do not create new penalties. They just draw specific attention to existing penalties that need zero tolerance.
Yeah.
So if a coach argues, you just called that because of the new point of emphasis, you can calmly say, no, I called Rule 603 boarding. The point of emphasis just reinforces why I have to be strict on this.
So what does this all mean? This brings us to the most practical takeaway for the official. The topic of discretion. We've set up this whole hierarchy of documents. What does it tell us about when we must call a penalty and when we have a choice?
It means you have to pay really close attention to one or two specific words in the playing rules. The rules use two main terms when they talk about penalty assessment: shall and may. That's it. That's the dividing line.
Shall and may. So if the rule says a penalty shall be assessed, what does that mean for me on the ice?
It means you have zero discretion. Zero. If a rule explicitly says a minor penalty shall be assessed for tripping, you have no discretion on whether to call it.
I can't let it go because it's the last minute of a tie game.
You cannot. You cannot ignore the infraction. The call is mandatory. It's what ensures fairness.
That's a tough mental barrier for new officials.
Yeah.
We're often taught that knowing when to swallow the whistle is an art form.
And in some cases it is. But here, the rulebook says, no, you must blow the whistle. That's where the art ends and the legal obligation begins.
Okay, so where does judgment, our discretion, actually exist?
Judgment exists only within the options the rule itself allows.
Can you walk us through a scenario that shows that?
Absolutely. Let's go back to Rule 603, boarding. The rule language might say something like, the official may assess a minor or major penalty, depending on the degree of violence.
So it says may.
It says may. In that case, you, the official, have critical judgment to make. Was that violent enough for a major, or was it a minor? That's your call.
But I can't decide to call nothing.
You cannot exercise discretion and decide to assess no penalty if the act of boarding actually happened. You must choose from the options provided. Your judgment is confined to the scope defined by that mandatory rule.
So the architecture of the rulebook, the mandatory nature of the playing rules, it actually creates the framework for how we use our judgment. We're never judging if a rule applies, only how severely to apply the penalty from the choices we're given.
Precisely. And if we bring everything together that we've discussed, the rule cycle, the hierarchy of documents, the mandatory language, it leads us to the 5 fundamental responsibilities for a new official.
We've established the foundation of authority is the 2025-2029 playing rules. So step 1 must be to just know the playing rules.
That is the foundation. And right after that, step 2 is you have to actively apply the casebook interpretations. Use those examples as your mental drills.
Step 3 is ensuring that consistency by understanding and following SOPs where they're provided. That maintains the national uniformity.
Step 4 is to fully grasp the meaning of shall and may. You must enforce penalties exactly as written. If the rule says shall, you call it.
And finally, encompassing everything. Every single action we take is geared toward one thing: ensuring player safety.
That objective ties everything together. And that knowledge, that understanding of the hierarchy, that's the difference between a new official who's guessing and an experienced one who's officiating with informed confidence.
This deep dive into the structure itself, it really is the key that unlocks that confidence.
Yeah.
You're not just relying on instinct or tradition, you're relying on the defined mandatory mandate of the 2025-2029 rules cycle. Understanding this framework really is the foundation for every single confident whistle you blow.
And since we stress that the playing rules are the binding statute regardless of local preference, a point I guarantee you will need to defend on the ice, consider this before your next game.
Okay.
When you're faced with that veteran coach arguing for a traditional local interpretation that you know contradicts the playing rules, what specific steps, based only on these authoritative documents, can you take? What language can you cite to quickly shut down that argument and maintain control, all while reinforcing that you are simply enforcing the national mandate?
Something critical for you to think about as you move from learning the rules to applying them under pressure. We look forward to diving into the specifics of those playing rules in our next deep dive.
Until then, stay sharp and officiate with confidence.
Good luck out there.